Today we're going to be looking at Lunar Tides in the color Magic Oracle. So the Magic line from Lunar Tides is a line of black or almost black dyes that have different undertones. I think there's a red one, a blue one, a purple one, and a green one. So today is the green one. So before we get started, my hair is human hair, but the only one that's going to be virgin hair is the number 4 black swatch. The rest have been chemically colored or bleached at some point in their existences. Also, the numbers are just to help us keep track of each swatch. They're not synonymous with hair levels. I do different pictures and video clips later in the video, so numbers just help us keep track. 1 is pink, red, and green are technically across from each other on the color wheel. And pink is a variation of red, so I wanted to see how well this could cover. 2 is gray, 3 is a natural red, 4 is black, and then 4 to 11 is a range that goes to platinum blonde, and then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So I'll take the dye directly out of the container and I will put it at the top of each swatch. And then some people do like to dilute their dyes, so I'm going to do a diluted version at the bottom of each swatch. Please keep in mind, everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take color differently. Plus, different screens and monitors can make colors look different, especially undertones. So please just use my video as a reference as to how this could possibly turn out on your hair. For the diluted section, we're going to do a 1:8 ratio. So that is 1 part of the dye to 8 parts diluter. If you're confused about what diluter is, my simple answer is that it's something that lightens the color of a semi-permanent dye. Usually each brand will have their own diluter that you can buy to mix with your color if you'd like. But to keep things more fair between dyes, I always just use a plain white conditioner. Okay, so I really like these to absorb the dye, so I'm gonna let them sit for 3 hours. I will warn you as well that my cameras are not amazing, so sometimes it's kind of hard to see when I do darker colors, like black especially, but hopefully the diluted section will give us a good indicator of undertones and whatnot. So before we get too far into this, I do want to say that I have an affiliate code with Lunar Tides. So you can use code FLOXY for 15% off. And like I said, this is an affiliate code, so I do make a small commission when you use my code, but of course that always goes right back into the channel. So I think I may have said it before, I haven't done a ton of black dyes on my channel, so I can't say I have a ton of experience using black dye, but I will say this did seem to work pretty well. All of the swatches on the direct dye portion are black. So one of your first questions probably is, does this look like a black with a green undertone? And my answer is kinda yes, kinda no. So first thing I noticed was that the number 4 black swatch does look different from the rest. Usually the black swatch doesn't take any dye and therefore looked like a different undertone, if that makes sense. Like it looked a little bit more neutral, and compared, I could see the green undertone in some of the swatches. But I also noticed that some of the lighter swatches tend to not look as green in undertone. So I don't know if my camera can pick up on it, but from where I was sitting now, I can see slightly green undertones in like the 5, the 6, and the 3. Whereas it seems the lighter it gets, the more truer to a black it looks on my swatches anyways. But overall it is quite dark, and even on the swatches where you can see a bit of green coming through, to me it still just looks like a black with maybe a slight green undertone instead of being a green that's so dark that it looks black, if that makes sense. For some swatches, like maybe 10, 11, and 12, maybe even like number 1, I think you might not see the green undertones, maybe unless you were out in direct sunlight. But even diluted, pretty much all of the swatches except maybe like number 5, kind of number 6 as well, took some bit of color. So this does seem to be quite pigmented. So as for comparisons, other than this one, I've only done 2 other blacks, one of them being the purple undertone black from Lunar Tides. So I'm actually gonna go with Arctic Fox's black that I did in the color Transylvania. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. So I chose the Arctic Fox black because I felt like the undertones were going to be a little bit more similar than a purple undertone would be. But that's not to say that the undertones are the same. You can see that the Arctic Fox leans just a lot more silvery blue versus like a green. And to kind of keep the diluted sections from distracting us, I did put a little piece of paper on top. So overall, they both look like very saturated black dyes, but I think the green undertones in Magic Oracle is making the black look a little bit more soft and muted, whereas the Arctic Fox one looks a little bit closer to a jet black. Again, probably the undertone that's doing that, but they both still look relatively black. So if anybody has any experience with either of these black dyes, whether that be how it applied to the hair or especially how it faded, feel free to comment down below to help anybody out that is considering one of these colors. So once these swatches were washed and dried, I felt like the diluted section was looking a little familiar, and I would say looks quite similar to Lunar Tides in the color Cerulean Sea. So I wanted to compare that. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. I wanted to put the swatches at the top for a second just so you can see how dark the Oracle really is. So hopefully you can see what I see here. I know my camera sometimes picks up on things a little bit differently than how I see them, but it seems to me like the Magic Oracle is a blackened version of Cerulean Sea. I don't want to say that I'm shocked, but I was expecting when I lightened this up for it to look a little bit closer to Juniper versus Cerulean Sea. All right, so we're gonna try the paper trick, but opposite. So I'm covering the black parts. Now to me, the bottom part and the Cerulean Sea look nearly the same. I think the biggest difference is that the Cerulean Sea looks a little bit more saturated and a little brighter, I guess, whereas the Oracle is a little bit softer, more muted looking, which makes sense considering the context that it's actually a black. So if you were someone who was looking for a slightly more muted version of Cerulean Sea or even a darker version of it, buying the Oracle and lightening it up could be a really good option for you because they are quite similar. So this is editing Floxy jumping in really quick. I'm noticing on camera that the Oracle looks a lot more green in comparison to Cerulean Sea, but I partly think that's my camera because in person they do look quite similar. So I did actually decide to take a picture of Juniper, Oracle, and Cerulean Sea all next to each other so you can see the difference. That'll be a free post on my Patreon, and I will have that linked down below if you are just as confused as I am right now. Oh, and the other question that someone might have for Oracle, totally forgot, but when you open it up, it is quite shimmery. And for anyone wondering, no, that shimmer does not stay on the hair. I did notice a couple pieces do have a little bit of shine. I honestly think that's me though, from not washing it out probably 100% properly because overall 99% of the hair does not have any shimmer or sparkle on them. All right, so now I'd like to get into the before and after clips. Those, as well as anything after this point in the video, is all going to be done in natural lighting. I really hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form that you can fill out, but just remember I only do brands that do not test on animals. Thank you so much to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.